Good morning, everybody. I'm Simon Griffiths, the Director for Adult Social Care for Basildon Brentwood, but I'm also the sponsor for Carers, and I'm delighted here to just kick off this session. This is the fourth session of the week. I know probably a few of you may have already been to some of the other sessions. We've had a brilliant turnout, got 59 people on the call at the moment. Hopefully there'll be a few more to attend, but we've had around 100 of each of the webinars, so it's absolutely brilliant turnout, and I hope you're enjoying the webinars as you go through the week. This is the fourth one, as I say, and today's session will focus on carers and advocacy support, which is we do recognise that some carers' voices are not always heard. It's a big area that we need to focus on, and we need to get this right. So today is all about that. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The session will be recorded for sharing afterwards, so please use the Q&A function on Teams if you have any questions or comments throughout. And if we have time, which we may do, which Ben will be helping us out with at the end of the session, will be around some Q&A. So you might have some questions that you can get involved with at the end of the session, which would be really good. Looking forward to an absolutely fantastic session. I want to thank personally Denise, who's from Voiceability, who's going to be doing the webinar today. I thank her for giving up her time and effort for today. It's really, really appreciated. So thank you, Denise. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you. Over to you, Denise.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Simon. Hi there. So I would like to spend today just explaining a bit about who Voiceability are, what advocacy is, and then specifically around carers advocacy, who we can support, and then how you can refer into the service. So to start with, Voiceability, we're a charity that provides all type of advocacy throughout Essex. We've been supporting people to be heard in decisions about their health, care and well-being for about 40 years. We believe that everyone, regardless of their situation, illness or disability, has a right to be heard and respected, to have choice, control and freedom, and to be safe from violence, discrimination, harm or abuse. The charity, Voiceability, work with over 30,000 people in local communities every year, and we influence policy making nationally to make sure people's voices are heard. We used to be called Speaking Up, and have recently changed our name to Voiceability. So we're completely independent of social services, the NHS, and that's one of the things that we promote when we're working with people. If I could have the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm just going to explain a bit about what advocacy is, because it's not always clear. There's sometimes a misunderstanding of what advocacy is. So to quote from the Advocacy Charter, advocacy promotes social inclusion, equality and social justice. It takes action to help people say what they want, to secure their rights, respect their interests and obtain the services they need. We are, as an advocacy organisation, we are guided by the Advocacy Charter. We follow the Advocacy Code of Practice and we refer to legislation. So in this instance, Care Act legislation, but we also are well versed in the Mental Health Act and the Mental Capacity Act. And when we're working with children and young people, the Children Act. There isn't a quality assurance mark. So we are graded and audited, if you like, by the Advocacy QPM, and they have a code of practice, which we also follow. Some of the things that advocates will do. So we support people to have their say. We can talk to other professionals on someone's behalf if they want us to. We can discuss the situation with the person and what they want to do about it. We support the person to find out information to help them know what their choices are. And we work independently with the person. So as I said earlier, we're not part of social services or the NHS, and that's to protect and uphold the person's rights. The way we provide advocacy is we help somebody to express their views and wishes especially when decisions are being made about their lives, including assessments, planning and reviews. We explore options available to that person, and we support people to make their own decisions. We understand and secure their rights, and we enable them to self-advocate and represent themselves. Some of the things that advocates are, that we receive referrals for, if you like, where there's some confusion. So some of the things that we don't do, we're not a replacement for appropriate services. We don't provide counselling or befriending. We don't make decisions about people's care and treatment. We're not decision makers. We don't fill out forms for people, so benefit forms and things like that. And advocacy isn't a mediation service. Okay, so advocacy is a legal right. So eligible people have the right to statutory advocacy, and Care Act advocacy is incorporated in the Care Act 2014. So as I said earlier, some of the legislation that makes it a legal right is the Mental Capacity Act, and the Care Act state that you must refer eligible people for advocacy. So if I just go through how we work with some of our clients, so we are either instructed, so the advocacy we provide is user-led. So if that person has capacity, they will instruct us in everything that we do. We will always gain their consent before doing anything on that person's behalf. Sometimes we get non-instructed advocacy, so we may be working with somebody that doesn't have capacity to instruct us, and in those sort of situations, we ensure that the person's rights are being upheld. We ensure that they have a fair and equal treatment to access and treatment and access to services, and we make certain that decisions are taken with due consideration to all relevant factors, including people's unique preferences and perspectives. Okay, so some of what we already know, so some of what we already know, the Care Act 2014 guidance ensures that individuals are eligible for advocacy support if there are decisions to be made about their care or support. It will be difficult for the person to be involved in the process and friends or family aren't available to help. So obviously with carers advocacy, that is slightly different, but the criteria would be, that you need that support to understand the process, understand your rights, and to be able to get your voice heard. The Care Act 2014 assessment process is designed to evaluate an individual's care needs to ensure they receive appropriate support. Local authorities have a legal duty known as the Wellbeing Principle to promote the wellbeing of individuals when providing care and support, according to the Care Act 2014. And the principles of the Care Act apply to adults with care needs, their carers, and in specific cases to children and young people undergoing transition from assessments from children to adult services. We can only accept Care Act referrals from adult social care. One of the things that we get referrals for quite a lot at the moment is where people are finding that they're unable to access social care to ask for an assessment. So what we're finding we're doing at the moment is accepting community referrals, so that's the non-statutory referrals, to support that person to get into adult social care to actually then have that carer's assessment, or in some cases the actual assessment for somebody. Advocacy, I'll just go through a little bit about what advocacy for carers involves. So it's supporting individuals who provide unpaid care to friends or family members. This support can help carers navigate the complexities of their roles, understand their rights and access necessary services. Voiceability offer independent advocacy support, helping carers during assessment meetings, and these advocates can assist in ensuring that carers' opinions and experiences are heard by Health and Social Services. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, so these are how you can access into the service. So usually, as I say, it would be via a social worker would make a referral through the helpline. We have an online system where you can complete a web referral, and that tends to be the quickest way. You can telephone the helpline and they will take referrals over the telephone. And there are two, as I explained earlier on, there can be two ways that support is provided. So if a referrals come in from adult social care, the support that would be given to the carer is from a trained independent advocate for the statutory cases where somebody is struggling to access social care, to have that carer's assessment. We've set up peer support sessions and group sessions run by volunteers to give people the skills or help groups of people to access social care, to be able to get that assessment that they would like. And I believe that's, can I have the next slide, please? I think that may be. Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
You're on mute, Ben.
Sorry, there's always one. Sorry, I was just saying thank you so much, Denise, for presenting that. Lots of information for us to take away. Just to also mention that we have been recording this webinar. We'll make sure to send out afterwards. We have got a bit of time now to do some brief Q&As, and I know there's been a few comments and questions come up in the chat, so we'll just quickly go through those. But while we're doing that, if there's anything else that you would like to have clarified that was either covered in the presentation or not, please do let us know in the Q&A function, and we can try and get through that now. It's also just to mention on the screen in front of you, we've had most of the webinars completed now this week, but we will, like I said before, we will be sending out the recordings for those. So watch this space. Likely will be sort of end of next week, but as soon as we can, we'll share those. We do still have one final session tomorrow, which is around employer support for carers. So we'll put in the chat the link to book onto that if you would like to. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Before we go away, just a couple of questions that have come through. So the first Denise was from Wendy, which asked, do you offer informal advocacy to family carers rather than Care Act specific?
We can do. Our community advocacy service at the moment has unfortunately got a very long waiting list. So what we're trying to do is facilitate that with groups so that we can support more people. We're doing drop-in sessions. They've just started off, to be honest with you, within the last month. So we're hoping there hasn't been much take up, but as we go forward, we're hoping that there'll be more of a take up for people. But to access the community part of the service for families and carers, that person still needs to have substantial need or difficulty in being able to access their rights for their family or understanding the process.
Perfect. Thanks, Denise. We've had a few more questions come in. So the next one was from Bianca. Why don't Voiceability accept referrals from people going through a Care Act assessment and only from adult social care or decision makers?
That's the way our contract is set up, that we have to have referrals from adult social care. So a person can't refer in, because what will often happen is if a person was to refer in, that it may be some time before they're allocated a worker. So that the referral has to come in for the worker once that process, at the start of that process. Have I answered that question?
I think so, yeah. I mean, if anyone has any other questions or follow-ups, what we'll do is we'll collate an FAQs on this and we'll share that afterwards. And we can check that with commissioning, because I recognise that probably is more for commissioning to take away as well. So we've got another question from Paul that come in. Can you clarify if family carers can refer in themselves?
No, it still has to be adult social care. The only time under the Care Act where somebody doesn't have to have a social worker refer in is if they're challenging the outcome of the assessment. And then in those situations, they can come to us directly, because there could be a conflict of interest. But if somebody's challenging an assessment, the social worker may not refer in. So in that situation, the person can refer in themselves, but all others, for Care Act referrals, it has to be a social worker.
Okay, thanks, Denise. And then the next question is around, how can you help if a person lacks capacity and there's a dispute between care providers and other relatives about what is the person's best interest? Probably quite a common theme, I'm imagining, that comes through.
Yeah. So if somebody lacks capacity, a lot of our work is obviously done non-instructed. We will still try to obtain the views and wishes of the person, and anybody that knows the person and may know their past views and wishes. But other than that, we have several techniques that we use. One of the big ones would be a rights-based approach, so that ensuring that decisions that are being made for that person, about that person, are still upholding their rights. So things like the least restrictive option, their right to freedom and liberty, and making sure that within the Care Act and any other legislation, Mental Capacity Act, that person is being treated within that legislation.
Perfect. Thanks, Denise. So there's a few more questions come through. We've had, can you take referrals from PCNs and GP surgeries?
PCNs, possibly, but not doctor surgeries. For carers, it would have to be PCNs. We sometimes get confusion with CHC and DST assessments, that type of thing, and obviously they sometimes come in from health rather than social care, but usually it would be social care. But what I would say is, if ever there is somebody from social care wasn't sure, we can always answer questions. The help desk will either take the information, and one of the team leaders will get back to that person. But generally, the help desk know the criteria of the contract.
Great. Thanks for clarifying. And then the next question, is assistance provided for mental health for carers?
As far as advocacy, so that person can refer into our service themselves if they want advocacy support for themselves. So, for example, if they're having difficulty accessing services for their mental health, then advocates can support them to communicate with professionals, access waiting lists and that type of thing. So yes, carers and our service is available to any adult or even young person in Essex, so long as they have a need and nobody else there to support them.
Perfect. Thanks, Denise. And just to mention as well that I think there's a link in there to the self-advocacy toolkit. It might be worth do you mind just expanding and talking a bit about that?
Yep. So Voiceability have produced several different toolkits around quite a lot of things to help with complaints, accessing services, writing letters, and general communication. So there are several different ones, and that's the groups that we're setting up that is promoting those toolkits and hopefully empowering people to take charge of those issues themselves and being able to eventually self-advocate.
Perfect. And I think we're working on getting those links to the toolkits on the chat sort of momentarily. So watch this space.
Excellent. There's
also a comment from Emma who mentions about how there's a bit of a grey area of patients who require PA type services. Is this something covered by yourselves? Sometimes, no, I'm guessing the answer is no.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Sometimes it's just the point is around sometimes social care needs a personal care need. So recognising that.
Yeah, no, we don't. We're very we're very structured on the support that we can give. So obviously Care Act advocacy is supporting that person through those assessments, and if they need to challenge them. Advocacy in general is the community advocacy is very issue specific, and as I say, what we're trying to do is see if there are other services, because quite often people will come to advocacy for something that isn't quite advocacy. So we will then try and signpost that person to a service more appropriate and hopefully where they will be seen quicker.
Yeah, perfect. And then a question from Carla around, can it be a social worker working in a community service rather than adult social care that could refer in?
Yes.
Perfect.
So long as there's a link to social care, but it can be a community worker, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a clarification point. So previously, sorry, apologies for my part. So that the question was around, is assistance provided for mental health support for carers? I think the actual question was around, is assistance provided for carers of people with mental health problems? Is that something that's part of the offer?
If it comes under the Care Act, then yes.
Okay.
That.
And I think that is it. Let me just do a quick refresh. Thanks. I've just seen the toolkit link. I think it's also been put in the chat as well. Yep, I don't think there's any further comments or questions. What we'll do is try and collate those into a bit of an FAQs and then share those out afterwards, and keep the conversation going. I think if there's anything else that you'd like to ask Denise or Denise's colleagues, please get in touch. We can do our best to try and answer those. Yeah, just to say thank you so much all for listening. We'll close the webinar in a moment, but like I said before, the recording will be available soon and hopefully speak to you all soon. Thanks all.